always loved reading bedtime horror stories, and I treated them as light nighttime reading. But one day, those horror stories turned into reality. How did this happen? This is my terrifying story. Always lock the door at night. Bedtime horror stories can become real. My wife and I have a very bad habit of not locking the door when we return home. In the morning when I go to work, I realize that the door was unlocked all night. We start arguing, blaming each other for not closing it and calling each other irresponsible idiots. One night, a strong draft blew the door wide open, causing it to slam. Although it frightened us, it didn't break the habit. However, one night something happened that made me seriously consider installing a heavy-duty door latch. Even though my home is my fortress, what good are walls if the doors are open? That night, I couldn't fall asleep for a long time. Getting out of bed, I went to the kitchen for a drink of water. In the hallway, I suddenly stopped. Out of nowhere, I felt a strong urge to lock the door. I grabbed the key, inserted it into the lock, and turned it 4 times. Taking 2 steps towards the kitchen, I heard strange noises behind the door. The sound was as if someone was feeling the door from the outside, as if a blind person had encountered an obstacle and was trying to figure out what it was. Startled, I turned around and decided to look through the peephole. Approaching the door up close, I heard the doorknob being turned up and down. Someone was clearly trying to open it. In an instant, I went cold, my heart raced frantically, and a sharp pain struck. I wasn't even scared. Fear was replaced by a dragging sense of melancholy and anxiety. The desire to look through the peephole vanished instantly. Then I remembered a device I had never used, a surveillance camera positioned outside my door, connected to my computer. My brother had given it to me when he worked for a company that installed these devices. Turning on the computer, I started reviewing the footage. I don't advise those with weak nerves or unstable minds to read further. What I saw there shocked me. I can't provide a coherent explanation for what creature was there, because it definitely wasn't human. It was something wrapped in dark rags, moving unnaturally, wandering around the staircase. It was tugging at doorknobs, listening to sounds coming from the apartments, scratching at doors. Its head was also wrapped in strange dark cloth, and its hands were long and thin. This creature approached my door many times. In that moment, it felt like my heart would stop any minute, and my wife was quietly crying. Then it crawled down to the lower floors. I still feel guilty that my wife saw that video. She still can't recover from what she saw. Yesterday, she pleaded with me for a long time to move out of this rental apartment and find a new place. And I find myself increasingly wondering, what would have happened if I hadn't locked the door that night? Would it have entered the apartment and torn us apart, as often happens in horror movies? Or would they have found us with hearts stopped, faces frozen in the grimace of animal fear? I don't want to know. To those who are reading this now, I want to say the following. Lock your doors always. Take care of yourselves. I was bubbling with excitement. Camping had always been a distant dream for me, and the sheer fact that a friend had invited me was exhilarating. To sweeten the deal, my buddy Riley had arranged for 5 more guys to join us. Our plan was to kick off right after classes on Friday, driving up to an abandoned farmhouse in Kansas, a sight not too rare in those parts. But this particular farmhouse was something else, as Riley had put it. It wasn't just an old relic. It was a well-preserved secret, hidden from most folks, guaranteeing us a peaceful weekend. Our schedule was simple: all day Saturday, then a return on Sunday morning. Finally, around 6 p.m., Seth, the last guy, arrived at our vehicles, a white Suburban lent by Riley and a compact Honda van. The van accommodated 4, while the Suburban, packed to the brim with our gear, held 3 plus our equipment. By 6:30, we hit the road. After an hour's drive, we paused at a burger joint for a quick dinner and a driver switch. Following another 2 hours on the road, we reached the farmhouse. The sprawling empty land greeted us, the dilapidated fence telling tales of its former glory. The house, however, stood almost defiantly intact, a testament to its past. We unloaded and settled in, laying out blankets on the surprisingly sturdy bed frames. Someone suggested an early bedtime to ensure a fresh start for a morning of fishing. Personally, not one to burn the midnight oil, I happily agreed, eventually persuading everyone else to follow suit. Sleeping arrangements were tight, with only 3 beds in each room. Myself, Riley, and an unfamiliar face bunked together, while the rest did the same next door. A guy named Roy, apparently unfazed by adventure, claimed the battered couch downstairs. As I lay in bed, a drafty chill and the eerie atmosphere gave me a bit of a hard time falling asleep, but exhaustion took over eventually. Riley's movements roused me. It was just past 6:30, time to gear up for some fishing. I scrambled, throwing on jeans and a jacket, grabbing one of the remaining fishing rods. By the pond, the gang had gathered. Roy, Riley, a couple more guys, and I. The lines were cast, and we sat, gradually waking up. Over the next hour, others joined us, grogginess giving way to morning chatter. "Hey, who was the genius wandering downstairs last night?" Roy's voice pierced the light banter. Silence followed. No excuses, no chuckles. "Seriously, it's no big deal. I just want to know," Roy pressed. Minutes felt like hours as Roy scrutinized us one by one. Unable to hold back any longer, I spoke up. "What did they even come down for? Did they sleep down there?" "No idea. I was half asleep and just saw someone come down, glance at me, and then I nodded off," Roy explained. The questions died down out of fear for a potential backlash. On the upside, Roy decided to call it a day, packing up the gear. The fishing had been successful, guaranteeing food for the day. We returned to the yard in front of the farmhouse, shedding jackets and engaging in an impromptu frisbee game. Then baseball took over, and some even started a poker game on the grass, while I watched from the porch steps. Out of nowhere, a guy named Joel appeared, plopping down beside me on the steps. Clearly miffed, he grumbled, "Why didn't anyone wake me up?" "You managed to beat a couple of guys to the fishing even though you just woke up," I countered. "I literally woke up like half an hour ago." His irritation shifted to confusion. "Stop messing around, Joel. You were fishing with us and you played frisbee too," I snapped. "I'm telling you, I just woke up. I didn't even know we were playing frisbee." "Well, there were 7 of us fishing and the teams were 4 against..." My words trailed off. "Did anyone go downstairs last night?" I interrupted him, my urgency palpable. "No, I was out as soon as I hit the bed. I've been staying up late for the past..." Joel began, but I was already walking away. Counting heads, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, plus me makes 7. Yet from the corner of my eye I detected a faint shadow near the tree line. When I turned my gaze, it had already vanished. Without hesitation, I found Roy and pulled him aside. "We need to talk," I urged, not wanting to alarm the others. "Okay, what's up?" Roy's face was etched with concern. "I think there's someone else here," I blurted out. Roy fixed me with a penetrating stare, shot up from his spot, and ushered me to the Honda van. "Why do you think that?" he inquired. "Think about it. Someone came downstairs last night and no one's owning up to it. They could be covering for each other," he reasoned. "I just talked to Joel. He only woke up recently." You might be onto something. There was a face I didn't recognize in the group," Roy muttered, his gaze distant. In a heartbeat, he was in the van's back, reappearing moments later with a pistol in hand. "Why do you have that?" I exclaimed. "I had a feeling this might happen. They could be thieves. We need to be cautious. Spread the word and keep an eye out. They could be dangerous." I relayed the message and recounted heads again, 7. That was a relief. As the sun set and the cold settled in, Roy and his friend lit a fire in a stone pit. After cooking fish and a mostly silent meal, Roy beckoned me to the van again. He handed me a 6-pack of beer and held another in his hand. Not a big drinker, I finished mine quickly. The rest were varying levels of tipsy, and then Joel suggested a game of capture the flag. I retrieved the flashlights from the Suburban and rejoined the group. But when I returned, everyone had a flashlight. Confused, I looked at the one person who hadn't when I left. He claimed someone had given it to him. "Who gave it to you? Where did they go?" I asked, my pulse quickening. "Some guy handed it to me, then dashed into the woods," he slurred. My flashlight beam twitched as my hand trembled. A silhouette ran after Roy, holding a gun. I focused the light on it, but it had no features, just an indistinct shape. When it sensed the light, it turned toward me, charging. I stomped the gas pedal and sped away, We drove for what felt like an eternity, the thing still tailing us. Then a beeping started, and I saw it on the dashboard. The trunk was opening. Panic surged through me. I pulled over and stared at Riley, who woke up disoriented. "What?" I turned to him slowly. "The trunk's opening." He blinked, a moment of realization dawning on him. Then the trunk slammed shut. Fear swirled in our eyes. "Drive," a distorted voice murmured through the radio. We accelerated, the thing right behind us, waiting for us to stop. But our gas was running low. I shared a plan with Riley, a sudden brake, sprint out, and loop back to the van once a safe distance was achieved. I slammed the brakes, and as the van screeched to a stop, we jumped out, darting into the woods. After a while, we circled back, but the vehicle stood there with open doors, no sign of the creature. We got into the van, locked the doors, and sped away. An hour later, another alarm chimed. My heart raced as I looked at the dash. The trunk was opening again. Riley and I stared at each other in dread as the car slowed down, and I glanced in the rearview mirror to see a figure standing there. The car was struck from behind. We both screamed as I floored the gas pedal, but as we drove, the figure merged with the van, becoming one. My hands trembled on the steering wheel, and I stared at Riley. "What do we do?" he yelled. I turned to him with a slow, chilling smile. "You better drive."